Happy video day, guys, and happy Make Up Your Mind day. Today I'm going to be giving you guys another Make Up Your Mind. Right when I saw Jeffree Star was releasing a new eyeshadow palette, and it was actually, I will tell you, there's parts of it that actually really got me like, ooh. And then some of the stuff was like, So right when I saw this, I was like, I need to do a Make Up Your Mind on it. And basically, Jeffree Star is releasing his Orgy eyeshadow palette and his Mini Orgy eyeshadow palette. Yes, that's what he named it. But are we really shocked by him naming his palette something like that? I mean, he had a cremated theme last, you know? So I'm not really shocked by the name, but the palette itself was intriguing to me. Now, on this Make Up Your Mind, I'm actually going to be doing one of the palettes. And I had to figure out which is the one that I thought was the more unique out of the two. So this is his big eyeshadow palette that's releasing. It's 30 matte shades and it's gonna be $62 US. And then there's the mini version that's releasing, and the mini version is gonna have 9 metallic shades and it's gonna be $28. So from these two, I was actually considering doing a Make Up Your Mind on both of them. But when I started pulling out my palettes, guys, to try to see if I can mimic these palettes, I noticed that the big eyeshadow palette, in my opinion, was just a little bit too redundant for me. I like the theme, well, not the theme, I like the color story. I think the color story was really pretty. I like the browns. I thought it was really nice that it was like an all nudie palette. But as I started finding them, I started going, oh my God, but this is gonna be so boring because a lot of these tones are just, it's a lot of brown and it's a lot of repetitiveness. For me personally, I feel like that palette could have been condensed into a 20 pan eyeshadow palette or a 15 pan eyeshadow palette. Would have given us a very similar idea, and it wouldn't have been so many tones that are so close together. So that's why I decided, you know what, I'm not gonna do this one. I mean, there's probably a shade of brown that I do not have that's in this palette, but I think for a makeup artist or somebody who really wants every single hue of like a brown shade or a nudie shade, they might love that. But like I said, I personally would have wanted it only 15 pans, and I think I would have been good. So I decided, let me do the Make Up Your Mind on the mini palette. I think that there's gonna be a lot of people out there that are probably just making up their mind from the beginning and saying, I'm probably gonna skip the big palette because they see probably what I'm seeing. I think that a lot of people are probably looking at the mini palette more than they're looking at the large palette. But let me know down below what your thoughts are on that. So on this Make Up Your Mind, I had to just go with the palette that I actually had to make up my mind on, which would be the mini. And if you guys are new to this series, basically what I do is I try to go through my collection and mimic an eyeshadow palette as best as I can so that I can see the color story, and then I can kind of decide, do I like this color story? Is this colors that I'm gonna use? I usually try recreating a look on my eyes that I can kind of create if I bought that palette, so I can see if it's something that's going to be used in my collection. So I call it more of a how to decide before you buy series, so that you guys can try this at home, get an idea if you like the colors, and then decide whether you want to purchase it or not. I definitely think that there's sometimes that you just buy something because you just want it. That is totally cool. But if you're on the fence and you need to make some hard decisions, this is the way that I do it. And of course, guys, I did my Insta challenge this week and I posted this image right here and I asked you guys, what palette do you guys think I am trying to mimic this week? And these are some of the people who guessed it right. So that is so awesome that you guys are on top of the game when it comes to eyeshadow palette releases. If you guys want to get featured in my next Make Up Your Mind, all you have to do is follow me over on Instagram at Christina Brooke Beauty. Wait for me to post an image that looks like this one and just guess what palette you guys think I'm going to be featuring in my next Make Up Your Mind, and you guys can show up in my next video. That's what we're gonna do in this video. If you guys are new, don't forget to hit that subscribe button before we get into it, and let's get into it right now. Let me start off the video with the results. I always show you guys the results because I think it's important for you guys to see it so you guys can see where we're going. So these are my results. I have to say, I feel like for the most part, I was able to find a few of these tones. I will say that I had a little bit more fun finding these tones than I was having trying to find the other palette, but at the end of the day, there is a few things that I'm thinking as I kind of got this color story down on my arm, but we'll get into that. So I want to show you guys first the palettes that I used to kind of mimic this color story. The first one that I used is from Jaclyn Hill. This is the Morphe Jaclyn Hill palette, and I say this a lot, guys. This palette shows up in so many of these videos, so you know there's something good in here. Then we've got the KKW Beauty Mario palette. And then finally we have Natasha Denona's Sunrise palette. So those are the three palettes that I jumped into, and I tried to stick to those palettes for all of these colors because, spoiler alert guys, it's not like these colors are super unique, but that's okay. That's okay, because if the palette is beautiful, then it really doesn't matter if the colors are super unique. It just has to be put together that I think the color story is like incredible. So for this one, those are the palettes that I used, and I like all three palettes, so let's get into the first color. So for the first color, I did remember a color similar to this one from his swatches that he released. To me, it looks like a very light whitish tone. And inside of the KKW Beauty Mario palette, there's this first color right here called Decade. This color is so gorgeous. It's such a beautiful, almost like white metallic. It looks like it shows up so gorgeous on the lids. I honestly love that color. I think it's spectacular. The arm swatches he released are a little bit faint, but I believe that it's going to be like a silvery white, and that's what this is. This is like a silvery white. It's not like white. It has like some silver in it. Beautiful color. I honestly love it, and yeah, it's a very nice starting color. Then we move on to the next color. I went back into KKW Beauty and I grabbed the color called Glam. This beautiful, like almost champagne gold. It's another color that I honestly love out of this palette. It's a very light gold. It's leaning a little bit more champagne. It looks amazing on the lids, and honestly, it's a very pretty color. So the first two colors, they're actually very useful colors. They're colors that I use a lot, and the only problem is I usually use them a lot on top of matte looks, but I do love both of those colors. They're very, very, very pretty, and I do like them. So the first two colors I'm okay with. I think they're really nice. Like I said, I have both of the colors in this Mario palette, and I do love the formula of this one. Then if we move on, this one I was having a little bit of a hard time figuring out this swatch because the swatch was so light. It almost looked like the lady's skin tone. So what I did was I jumped into Natasha Denona, and I'm assuming it's going to be something close to Laurel. Now Laurel might actually have a little bit more pigment than this one, and it goes a little bit peach. I think it's going to be something similar to that because it's different enough from the color before it to really be a color that you can mix with the champagne color. Like, it's not like, oh, they put two champagnes, because it goes a little bit more peach. And the same as the first two colors. I love that tone. It's a tone I put on top of a lot of eye looks. Usually when I'm working with mattes, I love to use that tone. I think it looks beautiful all over the lid with just an eyeliner. It's a very, very pretty, soft, very usable tone. So the first three, honestly, guys, I think they're gorgeous. I really do. I think they're very, very pretty colors. I think they're useful colors. In my opinion, they're add-on colors. Then if we keep going, we have to go into Jaclyn Hill. So now I will tell you guys, Jaclyn Hill has a lot of these tones, these type of metallics. I feel like if you have the Jaclyn Hill palette, this is where you're going to start to notice that maybe you have a lot of these colors. Color right here, I believe it's going to be similar to this gold. I love this gold in the Jaclyn Hill. It's almost like a brownish gold, and it's one of the deeper tones that I feel like is inside of these swatches. It's like a true gold that doesn't go yellow gold. So what I love is that he didn't go the yellow gold route. He went a nice gold route, very neutral, very soft. These are very, very pretty colors. The next one, what I did was I grabbed this color inside Jaclyn Hill. When it's swatched, I think it's a little bit darker than the tone that's inside of his palette, but as you kind of blend it out, it starts to lighten up. So I feel like blended out, it looks similar to his palette, but when you first apply it, it's a little bit deeper, a little bit more shocking. But as I blended it, I can kind of see the color story, you know what I mean? So blending it out is where I can kind of like get an idea of what it's gonna look like. I like this tone. This was another very pretty addition to this palette. I really honestly don't have a complaint about this color story. I think it's very, very pretty. So the next one, what I did was I jumped into this first color right here. If you look at it, it's almost like a faint pink with a little taupe in it. So it's a very cool color, and it's the only color that kind of reminded me of what I saw in the Jeffree Star swatch. This color may be a little off, but it's the closest that I can get. And I like the color story as well. This one is also a very pretty color. Was it 100% needed because of the third color that's a little bit peachy? I feel like this is where I feel like the colors are tad bit similar. They're gonna look different, but they're already a little on the similar side. The next one is probably one of my favorite tones in this palette, and it's one that I find inside Jaclyn Hill, and it's this one right here. So if you guys see this tone, it's like a metallic brown. Now the Jaclyn Hill formula on this color, I actually don't really love it, but I love this color. It reminds me of the color you guys have seen in Sultry. It's that really pretty brown metallic that is just so gorgeous. I honestly love this tone. I think that this was a perfect tone to put with this color story. It really was. This already looks so pretty together. Like, this color story is gorgeous. I almost wish that he would have made some of these a matte and not done it all metallic, but I have a theory on why he did that. I'll share with you guys at the end. So for the next one is one of the only ones that I actually had to mix. I jumped into Natasha Denona's Sunrise palette, and these two top shades right here, Laurel and Agate, I've done this in the past that I've had to mix these tones together, and when you mix them together, they create a really pretty browny metallic champagne. It's a really pretty tone. Now, when I was swatching this one, I also started to feel a little bit of that. Like, I almost felt like the third shade and this one were already a little bit close, like in coloration. I know they're gonna be different. They're gonna have something different, but when you put them on the lid, are they really gonna show up so different? I'm not sure, but it is a very pretty tone. And like I said, all of these so far have been very pretty topper shades and shades that I like to put like all over the lid, just like one single color. And very pretty. I do, however, think that this shade that I just showed you guys right now should have been something a little different. Maybe if it would have been like a pale orange or something that gave me a little different than all of the champagne-y, nudie colors, which I understand is the point, but I would have liked to have seen something just a little different for that shade. So for this last color, what I ended up doing, I was really having a hard time finding this exact tone. It looked to me in the swatch almost like it was a goldish color, but not as gold as this one. But what I did was I jumped back into the same exact color that I showed you guys before from Jaclyn Hill. I grabbed it, but then what I had to do was I jumped into the KKW Beauty palette to kind of make this. And I went into this tone right here, which is a little bit of a prettier gold in my opinion. I really love this gold. But when you mix them together, you start to create almost like a goldy brown that's very, very pretty. It reminds me of this tone. So that was one that I had to like kind of mix to create. But I do like the tone, and I really think that those two colors mixed together actually created a very, very nice color. And it looks very similar to what he has inside of this palette. So that kind of rounds out the palette, guys. So those are all the tones inside of it. Like I said, I created an eye look that you could probably create if you bought this palette. This is a few of the tones that I showed you guys here mixed on the lid. They look really pretty. But of course, I need to tell you guys what I'm thinking. So as I started doing this and I started looking at these color tones together, I do think that you're going to be able to use this palette on its own, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult to use on its own. Unless you're somebody who just likes to put a wash of color on the lids, then you're going to start getting a little bit like, I need to mix it. So in my opinion, it's a mixer palette. It's a palette that you mix with another palette. Now, I believe he did this because the intention is that if you want the metallics that are going to match with the big palette, now you got to buy the mini palette, which I don't love that idea, because I'm almost like, okay, so now if I want metallics, I'm forced to buy the mini that is going to go really good with the big palette. So now you're going to be paying $60 for a lot of mattes. I have to say though, what I don't like about that the most is that when I was looking at doing the big palette for you guys, I noticed that a lot of the colors they were so slightly different from each other that it got boring for me. Like, I was like, another one? Well, if I'm going to put this on the lid, these two are going to look almost the same. And if you blend them together, this like first three are like very, very neutral. They're going to look very similar. Then the browns, like, it got deep, but they were like, the dimension between some of the tones were so close that I was like, what I don't like about that is if you would have just taken some of those browns or some of those lighter tones out and put the colors from the Mini Orgy palette in there, then you're talking about a palette that I would have been like, Oh my goodness, this is so cool. We've got these really awesome metallics that play really well with these nudie colors. I think that would have made this palette amazing. Super worth the $60. I think all of the colors would have meshed so well. You would have had some really cool metallics in there to kind of vamp up the lid. Even though, like I said, I think some of these metallics probably could have been a little bit of a different tone and maybe a little bit more unique, not so close to each other. And I have to make up my mind, and I think you guys know where I'm going with this one. I'm gonna make up my mind and not purchase this. And it's not because I don't think this is a pretty color story. If you guys love Jeffree Star's formula and you love his metallics especially, I think out of this whole collection, the route you should go is the mini one. I think the mini one looks incredible. I love the colors in it. But if you have similar palettes to me, is it going to be a palette that you're going to feel like you really missed out on? You might not, like, because honestly, there's not many times that I put only metallics all over my lid and call it a day. You know, typically I would be using a palette like Jaclyn Hill and I'll jump into a metallic. And I don't think that the metallics in this palette are so unique and cool that I personally need like an individual metallic palette, you know? So for the big palette, I think the big palette is cool if you're a makeup artist or if you're somebody who needs all of those browns, you need all of those nude colors, or if you're someone that only wears browns and nudes on your lids. Like, you're gonna like literally have it for like years. Just for me personally, guys, it's a no on both of them. I think it was going in a really good direction. I just think it was just done a little too much. Almost like how ColourPop sometimes just gives you too much, or Morphe gives you too much. I think that's what happened here. It went too much. It needed to be held back a little bit, and yeah, that Mini Orgy should have been combined. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed my Make Up Your Mind. That's my decision on this palette. That's where I'm gonna go with it. But I wanna know from you guys, are you guys interested in this? Are you guys gonna pick it up? Are you on the wait list? I wanna know everything down below. But like I said before, if these are your colors, if you love these colors, you love this color story that I found right here, then definitely go out and buy it. I will link it down below for you guys. And yeah, I'll see you guys in my next Make Up Your Mind. Bye.